Hi, everybody, and welcome. It is July 5th, 2023. I'm Aurora. This class is called Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. This is level 2, which what I've usually called the advanced class, but now I've begun to mishmash both advanced and beginner stuff together. So now we're just in a seamless integration of boundarylessness and unity consciousness. I'm still lighthearted, but I'm much less overtired than I was last week. So this is a sharing of all levels of material. And the reason why I used to have everything bifurcated, like first go through level 1, then go through level 2, is because I think like I was doing it 10 years ago. And I think that humanity has leveled up so much in the past 10 years that it's not too much just kind of like dump level 2 and level 1 or sprinkle it onto your brain at once. Like you will not liquefy, you will not state change into plasma immediately. You will not get brain fried is what I'm trying to say. Okay. So this class today dovetails perfectly with what I was teaching about the past 2 weeks in terms of level 1, lesson 2. That is all about the profundities contained within this shape, the double torus shape, and how I share with you the basic abstract energy pathways of impulses traveling throughout this shape, how this shape exists in a, let's call it a continuum, but I could also use the word matrix in the same definition of what is a crystalline matrix. So that movie from Keanu Reeves is a great science fiction movie, but it made everybody look at that word matrix as like, oh no, it's the control structure. Like we got to get out of the matrix. But really, the chakras are not a control structure, although they have been majorly hijacked and polluted. They are actually wonderful aspects of your energetic anatomy. And the matrix or formation within which they interact and exist is also part of divine perfection and is not something that is in any way meant to be like a trap or an endless labyrinth that you can never escape. I comprehend that that is your great fear, that I'm speaking to people on an extremely traumatized planet where many people have been through the karmic washing machine in many different cycles on what we could call the hamster wheel over and over and over again in a very unpleasant way, experiencing non-freedom of consciousness and simply negative repetitive time loops. So I really do comprehend where you're coming from, but please comprehend where I'm coming from, that I'm talking about the perfect divine architecture of the cosmos, the infrastructure of the way that reality is shaped, and that it actually is perfect and beautiful and amazing, and that these are things that we want to align with. We don't want to just dissolve them, dismantle them, or throw them out the window. I think they're really worth maintaining and clearing them out, instead of the sense of like, oh, chakras, there's something wrong with them, amputate them, get rid of them, like, fie on you, chakras, get out of here. Not like that at all. Really more the sense of if there are perturbations, wiggle wobbles, or impurities, things that are stuck on the membrane of death that are not supposed to be there, to clear them out. So it's like saying if you have a room of your house that's got rats or something like that, like don't just burn it with gasoline. Like get rid of the rats, clean out the rat turds, make it a sewing room, like do something with it, so that that way it's not just the sense of abandoning or amputating spaces that have been filled with pestilence or vermin or something that you don't really want to be there. So this teaching for level 2 dovetails extremely well with my presentation from last week. That is about the basic energy shape and consciousness pathways that one experiences in going through this double torus toroidal structure. And this double torus, grabbing my other sculpture here, is precursor to flying rainbow lasagna, that when we take this, actually hold it at this orientation and make it jump up and down in a context, or make it hold in one place and make the context jump up and down around it, this is what we end up with, this vibration, this oscillation, this genetic portal, this combining together of formerly divergent realms. So let's talk now about Ascended Mastery. This class is called the Time Vortex and Ascended Mastery. This is for level 2. And first of all, I always share my notes, which are full of spelling errors, totally ungrammatical, and really like quite illegible, which is a fantastic way for me to really encourage you to read them. But initially I wrote them from my own strange brain, just as my ways of being able to remember what I was going to talk about in class. And then last year, at the end of the summer, I was like, you know something, it's time for me to compile these into quote unquote a book, because I never thought I would write a book, because I'm much more about like painting a painting or making a music or something like that. So the idea of like actually sitting down and writing a book is very, very daunting to me. But what I did was I compiled all of my notes, and I fixed the spelling errors as much as I could. So they are mostly in note form, like bullets and outline form. But I always share that with people who are enrolled students. It comes with your Zoom link and with the archive. And then also what I have is a PDF of the flight manual, which contains my compilation of all of the notes. And some people really, really enjoy it. So I'm happy to share it, even with my lighthearted self-deprecation of how poorly written and ungrammatical they are, because some people learn really well by reading with their eyes. Some people learn really well by listening with their ears. Some people learn really well by touching and tracing and feeling things and making stuff with their hands and their fingertips. And these are all different cognitive neural pathways, and I like to make use of all of them in terms of presenting concepts to you as students, because that is actually the best way to use your brain. The best way to reach you is not just me standing here talking like blah, 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 a bunch of words, but to really engage all of your senses and all of your neural pathways, so that way you are able to really ingest and internalize these concepts. Learn the song, make it your own. Learn the song and make it your own. So this is also part of the unique information that I have to share in the world here with you. As first of all, many people talk about chakras. It is not proprietary knowledge at all, and it's actually ancient knowledge that comes from the vestigial traces of the antediluvian world that we know as Atlantis, ancient or concurrent Atlantis. There's traces of this information in the Hindu culture and in ancient Chinese culture, and also a lot of other indigenous cultures too. But usually they don't have the exact measurements. So I have, you can't really see because I have the window closed because it's very warm outside, so just don't have the natural sunlight in here right now, but you can usually see the paintings that are back there, and they are very highly calibrated and harmonically proportioned. And that is how your chakras of your body are arranged. They are not just a glowing ball of light or an amorphous mass that kind of generally is around or through your body. They have very, very specific shapes and forms and pathways and behaviors. And the way that they fit together, and learning this is a type of an expertise that gives you more freedom, like a freeing level of virtuosity, that the more, just like if you learned about your mitochondria, that can give you more virtuosity in how you utilize your body structure. So learning energetic anatomy helps you to be more empowered, is the word I was looking for. And I'm just going to grab a photo. Hold on one second, because I usually squint and scroll before class. And I don't have any excuses because, oh, that's a pretty good one. There we go. That's the one I wanted. Because I didn't come in just 5 minutes ago from walking my dog in the park. But let me bring up a picture for you. So this is one of my, and let me also just collapse the thumbnails for privacy. So this is a image that I use all the time in this class. The annotation has gone away. Hold on, guys. You know this. I just got so deflated. I'm like, the annotation went bye-bye. Annotation, please come back. Give me another chance. I swear I'll get better. Okay, good. If you're wondering what I'm talking about, like on Zoom, the little prompt for the annotation flashes for like 1 second. If you don't get it, it's like, oh, I missed it. I missed the annotation. Okay, we're back. I use this image all the time in teaching this class because it has a high degree of accuracy in some ways, and in some ways it doesn't show the entire picture. But so what we show here is not full chakras, but half chakras. So a full chakra would be, one toroidal structure that is kind of oriented vertically, is what I would say, like this, like an apple core shape. And then its complementary structure that is oriented like this. The pen is really hard to work with, so just be gentle with me, guys. So that's a full double torus, full chakra shape. But what I have in this drawing that is accurate is I have, half a chakra or just one apple core shape. What is accurate is the sense of showing the orientation. The red chakra is oriented vertically. Same thing with the violet chakra, which is also oriented vertically, and that would be kind of right here. And what I've shown is this vortex nestled perfectly within the cleft of the red chakra. So your violet chakra and your red chakra, here we'll write R and V over here, they have a special relationship because they are oriented at the same way. They're like the bookends. And then the rest of your chakras are oriented, this is kind of like buttons on a shirt. They have the vortexes facing quote unquote forward like this. So I bring this up because that's really super accurate in this drawing. So here you have vortex here, here I'll just make half circles here, 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 here. All right, so that's part of what is accurate about this. And also there's a little bit of a simplification in the sense that I show them all converging on one point within the body, even though on many of my other more accurate or elaborate paintings and drawings, what I show is that each one of these chakras, when they are unnested, has like one of them has a convergence point there, and one has a convergence point there, and then we've got one there, and then we've got one there, and we've got one there, and we've got one there. So this is accurate in some ways, a simplification in other ways. I always will speak to that because like there are limitations in how much accurate information I can put into a flat static painting and have it still be like legible. So sometimes I edit stuff out, but I don't want you to be misled. And I bring up this particular drawing of the chakra system because it emphasizes very, very well this time vortex shape. So I call this the time vortex instead of the time cone because this would be considered a cone shape, something that has straight edges, and it also has a different area of probability. So if I were to color in blue, this area within here, there's actually a larger area of probability than if I were to color in this area in blue over here. So the curvature of the boundaries actually matters in terms of math, probability, and literally the length of your timelines. Because we start, let's say this is beginning. I'm randomly choosing this blue color. I put 0 here as the sense of year 0 or birth. And that in this drawing, I emphasize this over and over, these are spiral pathways, but I draw them as simplified lines so that you can comprehend them and see them better. And your ball of consciousness begins at this lowest boundary, and then time marches in this direction. So if we were to draw the time scale, that would be year 0, and then we move up here to, let's say, age 100 or even greater. So we'll make it 100 plus. Let's not even put a limit on how old you can live, and or how long you can live rather. And then also, let's talk about this. I'm going to super overemphasize it as if it's a big giant, can you see that? A big giant hole. But that is the doorway to infinity. And here's a big giant purple infinity sign. So that is the wormhole that you use to exit this life and this layer of reality. And this pathway that I am drawing in purple here is a vector or a directive force that I'm trying to make perfectly straight, even though it's hard for me to draw with this pen. And it goes up the center of the time vortex. It is analogous to a tent pole, like a big giant, circus tent or glamping tent that has a central pole, and then the rest of the tent fabric is kind of held aloft by that central feature. That path of least likelihood is what we're going to really talk about and focus on today. It represents the pathway through time, series of thoughts, feelings, and behaviors and event structures or niches that you walk into and occupy. That is the path of ascended mastery. And every single one of us has that baked into or innately as a part of the structure of who we are. Speaking of structure, I'm drinking my wonderful structured water. Thank you. It's really important to recognize that. Because I think in the cultural filter, I'll go back to my face and then I'll come back to this this diagram again and again. In the cultural filter of expectations of what ascended mastery is and the way that it has been described to you, it might have been described or portrayed as only for special people. That's in quotes. Only for special people, only for certain people. Maybe not for you. I'm joking, because I am here to tell you, yes, it is for you. It is for you, and it is also for my dog, who is sleeping in her little dog bed down there. And it is also for butterflies. We have monarchs. We're on a monarch migration path where I live in my community. And I've been seeing the most beautiful monarch butterflies flying around through people's gardens when I walk with my dog. Every single one of those butterflies has a pathway that is their ascended mastery pathway. Every single blade of grass, every single microbe, we're getting into the trillions here. Can't really see it because the lighting is so bad in here right now. The planet herself. The planet herself has a time vortex representing probability structures, a standing wave of probability structures, and the things that may happen to the planet. And so large scale structures, even the sun, even the galaxy. So just to be really clear about the sun and stars, right now we live in this world of mortality. And in this world of mortality, I don't want to call it post-Atlantis, but the world that we have been incepted into as part of the degradation of consciousness that is concurrent in Atlantis. We are here in a world of have the potential, the dormancy of knowing that we are immortals. And we come from an immortal world. In that world, no one died, nothing dies. All consciousnesses and all creatures remain alive and ascend. No one ever goes at an angle and hits the membrane of death. That's big stuff. Not one cell on your body dies, ever. No microbes die. No plants die. No planets die. No stars die. Here you are in a different layer of reality that we call the realm of mortality, where first of all, our planet is at the angle, the tilt of the axis. We have planetary seasons that have to do with winter, spring, summer, fall, the generative cycle of planting a seed, watching it grow, harvesting it, and then everything dying, going into dormancy, and then coming alive again in the spring. I play that song from Vivaldi, bum bum ba da bum 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 ba, springtime again. And that is part of your innate experience here, and the expectation of everything having these birth, death, rebirth cycles, including stars. In this level of reality, stars have an evolutionary cycle. And I really like saying evolution instead of death, because I think that has a greater recognition of the fact that the journey doesn't end at death. And same thing, when you ascend, big emphasis here, your journey doesn't end. It is not synonymous with death, which would be considered like a dead end, a place where you hit a brick wall, a membrane of death as brick wall, and then cannot continue forward in your trajectory in time. Instead, calling the star's journey an evolution recognizes that it is consciousness, stars are conscious and alive, evolving through different states. So for the journey of a star, like an actual star in the sky, the way it starts out is as a planetary nebula. This is me. My hand is a planetary nebula. I'm a collection of dust and gases in the vacuums of space, or the larger interstellar regions of space. And at a certain point, gravitational waves and other organizational forces flow through me, and then I kind of coalesce together, and there's enough mass and there's enough organizational presence in me to give birth to a star. And just like with you, with conception, there's not always a 100% success rate in terms of human conception every time there is sexual intercourse. We can, like, skeptical face there. Of course not. Oh, of course not. Not for any level of mammalian intercourse or sexual reproduction. There is not a 100% success rate. But actually, there could be if you were in the world of ascended mastery. However, if you were in the world of ascended mastery, you would create new people differently or have not so much of a need of creating new people because you wouldn't have people dying so much. So just please understand that. Your whole entire motivation for procreation would change. But if you wanted to procreate, every time you tried, you would have a hit. You would have a masterpiece every time. But just different levels of desire, requirement, and a completely different approach. In case you can't tell from my face, that it would be like, no, you're not constantly having sex as an ascended master and then having constant conceptions and constant births and constant babies. It's not like that at all. But a star is conceived and successfully comes together in what you would call a polygonal shape of different forces. That's a complex shape that's kind of like whoosh, ka-chunk. And then it's got a structural integrity that it maintains. That's its life, or what we consider to be its life when it radiates. And it does stuff. Sending stuff out. It's sending stuff out that is consciousness. Just drinking more water here because it's a very hot day. Timelines, possibilities, and probabilities. So if you want to know, like, hey, Aurora, where does time come from? Where do the chakras come from? Where does all this stuff come from? It comes from the source, and it also comes from the sun stars. And the sun stars are portals that go directly to the source, and their emanations or the dreams or the narrative structures that they create, including the sense of you and I in the experience of biological life on a planet, are part of the larger dream of, you would say, God's mind or a divine intelligence, expressions of divine intelligence. So the answer to that really is, time comes from the mind of God and expressions of pure divine intelligence. And these expressions are mathematical, abstract perfections. They come through different portals, like the great conductor. Tap, tap, tap. I'm the center of the galaxy. I'm the great conductor. So these consciousness emanations and impulses come through the galactic center, and then they organize matter, and they are broadcast outward into each one of the stars, who are like the individual musicians in the symphony of life. And those musicians play a song. Now I have my piano set up and I have my settings properly on Zoom. So here's the sun playing a star. Here's the star playing a song. Ah! You gotta turn up the volume if you want people to hear it. Let's try again. Here's the sun playing a song. I'm the sun, I'm playing a song. It's a song of life, I'm making time. So each one of you has a unique song that is your song, that is emitted from the source via the galactic center and the many multiple stars into this shape. This shape is an abstract probability field, a standing wave of all of the permutations of events, reality structures, feeling states, and things that you can think and do in reality. It represents literally like different math possibilities or math equations of everything that you could possibly do in the world. And that is incredibly complex because you know why? Every time you make a decision, you have a branching time structure. Even today, it is roughly 2:30 p.m. You have already made 10 million branching thought structures, branching time structures from your thoughts and your decision-making process throughout the day today. When you wake up in the morning, will I drink coffee? Will I drink tea? Will I drink nothing? Will I walk the dog first? When you make your coffee, will I put in 1 spoon of sugar, 2 spoons of sugar? How much would how many cups of coffee will I drink? All of these minutiae, and also every single, like in your kitchen, where you're like, am I gonna open this cabinet first and get my vitamin C? Or am I going to open up the dishwasher first and get my coffee cup? Or do I have to run upstairs and get my coffee cup and wash it out? And should I put on my dish gloves? Or should I get my hands wet? Every single one of those little tiny life decisions creates a branching thought structure. You had coffee, you didn't have coffee. You had tea, you washed the dishes, you didn't wash the dishes. You did this, you didn't do this. No sugar for you today, or 12 spoons. I'm joking. I've never put 12 spoons of sugar in the coffee. But what you eat, when you eat, how many sips of coffee you drink, all of these things. And that is just for the relatively what would be considered simple and mundane activity of waking up and breakfasting. And think about all of the more complex decision trees that you go through every day. Everything, like what you're deciding what to wear, and you're deciding how to structure your day, and you're making choices, and you're even making choices when you drive or walk on standard pathways. Like you're always going to drive to work, or you're always going to drive to the store, but you're always making choices about, like, are you going to let that guy go? Are you going to turn left first? All of those things represent complex branching timelines. And the reason why I bring this up is not just to like over inundate you with needless complexity. Like, Aurora, like I can't take it. It's just like too many choices. You know what I mean? Like putting so much pressure on you of like, I can't, like rocking back and forth. I can't take it. Too many choices. No, it is to celebrate all of these many multiple choices and time pathways, but to recognize that most of them lead to the membrane of death. Again, rocking back and forth. How many cups of coffee am I allowed to drink? Am I gonna die? And here's the answer. You have already died a countless number of times. Just like that amazing, brilliant, comedic, profound movie Groundhog's Day, where the main character is basically recycling within one daily time structure. You have already died many times in your life by doing your math homework wrong. You have made it to the membrane of death. You have uncoalesced, dissolved, unknit the sweater of your genetic reality structure and circulated back to the beginning and started again. And every time you do it, you have greater levels of increased wisdom. So that is why, back to my fragmented thought, the evolution of a star. So a star evolves as it is in its generative level of lifespan, when it is radiating not only visible optical light, but also radiation like X-rays and gamma rays, but also time structures. It's like, I'm sending stuff out, I'm doing stuff, I'm making stuff happen. And then the sun evolves because it learns from the stuff that it sends out, and how we then reflect that information of experience back to the stars, back to the sun and the stars. You're like, wow, God, thank you very much, sun. Thank you for my body and for the calcium and atoms that I'm able to use here for infrared heat and light that makes our plants grow, and consciousness that is imbued in my food and my glucose structures. And then you send those cognitive experiences back to the sun, and you're like, yep, and here's what I'm doing. Maybe I'm making a cup of coffee. Maybe I'm, imperiled on the highway with, impending Mack trucks. Could be like a peaceful journey, it could be a perilous journey, but you're going to send that back to the sun and be like, here's what's going on. And the sun profoundly cares about you. It's like the ultimate adept and loving parent, that we are its art forms, we are its biological emanations, and the sun absolutely wants to make sure that you make it out of this level of reality, past the membrane of death, to that wormhole. To the wormhole. Hold on one second. So now let's go back to my beautiful whiteboard. Oh, my annotation is here, but my previous annotations are gone. Don't worry, guys. I can handle this. Okay, just gonna draw this in pretty simply. I didn't know everything would disappear. Like, things are so ephemeral in Zoom. Okay. And then just like I drew before. There, see? I'm recreating everything. That's just the worst line ever. Ugh. Just make it better. Okay, good. And the most important feature that I'm going to draw here for this class today is this wormhole, which you can see it looks very big, but I'm trying to just overemphasize it. This is you as an impulse. This is the path of least likelihood, and that is literally the only doorway out of what is considered life. Life is every place that I am scribbling in blue over here. It's a good place to be. It's not an imprisonment. It is a gift. It is an opportunity. although I recognize that your soul might be weary from all of the various incarnations, parallel lives, and turnings of the hamster wheel that you've been experiencing of like, oh, I have to go through this and I have to go through this, playing all the wrong notes on the piano. And that is never in the way that this experience was meant to be experienced. The intention for this experience was for you to be sighted and literate in time. And that means that your higher faculties are active, and your higher faculties are your brow and your crown chakra. It's literally your aperture, your eyesight that you're able to use to see time. And you should be able to see the future. Around here in this time space, being able to see the future is considered to be a very, very rare and precious gift. People who can see the future are considered to be oracles who can be consulted by those who are not as blessed and don't have access to that gift. But the time of Atlantis is a time when everybody had that gift. Just as in this world, it is almost everybody that has two functional eyes, and almost everybody is sighted and able to see. And then not only that, but you are literate. So here in this world, literacy is also seen as somewhat of a privilege, of the sense of were you able to have education? Were you able to afford books? Were you able to create those neural pathways of being able to read and comprehend the written word? Or being musically literate, which is where you don't just have to hunt and peck on the keyboard like, is this the right note? No. Is this the right note? No. Is this one? No. 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 And then you're like, that's the right note. That was the one I was looking for. If you're musically literate, you don't have to kind of like press and figure out, does it sound right? Does it play by ear? You don't have to play by ear. What you can do is go directly to, because you can read it on the formal musical language. That is what's going on. So I'll also say this isn't part of my original notes, but there's an amazing video I want to share with you that it's not on YouTube, so I'll just share the link. That's about DNA as waveform and DNA as math, and about the complex mathematical structures and number structures that are innate in the molecular form of DNA, and that is part of musical literacy. So you might be like, Aurora, I hate math. I'd rather jump out a window than do math, and I'm like, wait, reassess your hatred of math, because math can be liberating. When you are able to make a series of calculations using your DNA and then be able to sense before it has happened the next thing that you should do, you're like, I find this liberating. I find this fun and liberating and comforting, because it means I'm not going to drive over the edge of a cliff. I'm going to do these calculations, read the musical score of time, and know exactly what note I need to play in order not to die. That is the structure that the incredibly benevolent and wise and positive divine intelligence creator baked into our experience here. That's the way. Wait, I'll go back to me so that I can make my ironic gestures here, even though I will lose the annotations. Now I have to find my cursor on the screen. Now I have to find the place where it says stop share. God, guys, I can't see anything around here. It's actually very challenging. The light conditions, there we go. Because I have these, my place is dark, but then I have these lights that are kind of like directly into my eyes. I'm like, I can't see anything. I'm sorry. The brochure. Before you incarnated here, you were given a brochure like, this is what it's going to be like. You're you discarnate spirit. And you're like, reading the brochure, like, you will get a body. It's going to be like this. You're going to be able to have your higher time aperture functional, so that you can read time, be literate. So not only see it, but read it. Like, you guys, you know, if you see words that are not in a language that you can read, you're like, I can see that there are squiggly lines there, but I don't know what in the world it's saying. That's not that helpful. But when you are literate, you can see that there are squiggly lines and then actually know what those lines represent in terms of the language of what it is. So that video that I have is very, very good at making the parallels and allegories of DNA and human language structure. Like that there's all of these statistics in terms of the formalism of the codons of your DNA and how that relates to syntax and grammar in a language. So your DNA is a language. And what you want to be able to do is be literate in that language. seems only fair because it's your body, it's you. You should be literate in the language of you, in the language in which your biological form was written. But that's what happens when you don't actually experience the brochure. You're like, I was supposed to be able to know what was going on, see the future, sense the future, know exactly what's going on in the DNA structures of my body. Harumph! My shoulders go down. It's just not, I stamp my foot. It's not the way it's supposed to be, and I don't like it, and I'm making my sad, pouty face. I don't like the way this is. Cosmic Complaints Department, I'm talking to you. And you're correct. Cosmic Complaints Department would be like, yes, thank you, we have received your complaint, along with a complaint list this long of all of the others who have recognized this and who also do not agree to the proposition of diminishment that you've been experiencing. And that's where we get to the sense of this system that is supposed to be a pristine, incredibly well-crafted system, being kind of crapped all over and not functioning in the way that it is supposed to function. So in ancient concurrent Atlantis, nobody ever died. Everybody went to the wormhole that is the exit from this reality, but it is not death. When you hit that path of least likelihood and you are able to go up the central core timeline here, and you are able to realign with this point here, which is the source and the destination, you exit this level of reality, but you do not die. And that is similar to the evolution of the life cycle of a star. At a certain point, the star is no longer gushing out light, consciousness, ideas, dreams, narrative structures, stuff. At a certain point, the star turns inward and stretches inward infinitely and becomes a black hole. And under those circumstances, I would not say that the star dies, but I would say that it evolves to the next level of experience. So when you ascend, I'm really making emphasis here in order to define this effectively, because many people have erroneous ideas about what ascension is. So one of the erroneous ideas that I've already kind of deflated is the sense that ascension is only for very special people. I'm making my facetious face. Ascension is only for very special people, not you. That guy over there, not you. But ascension is an innate pathway and inevitability for each one of us, for each life form, for each consciousness, individuated spark of consciousness. And then the other concept is ascension death? Is it like death? Because you get a lot, I'm just going to say, like, making the side-eye face. Guys got a lot of stuff wrapped up with the life and teachings and death and crucifixion of Jesus Christ. Just going to say that, sip my tea like Kermit. A lot of stuff wrapped up in there. Because that guy died, but then he ascended. There's like a lot of conflicts there. Like, I didn't know quite how to speak to the mythology of the crucifixion. And so I'm not even going to touch it right now in terms of trying to be accurate on that. There's a lot of mythological, cultural preconceptions and religious expectations, and you could call it dogma, of stuff that is clearly obscuring your true view of what ascension is. Ascension is not equitable with death, even though I want you to know, if you have loved ones or family members or cherished pets or even a tree that you love that whom has died, they're not disposable. These are very, very beloved organisms that aren't just going to be like, throw them out the window. They're not ascended. And then there is some spiritual elitism too, especially in our present world, of the sense of whom is ascending? Is it me? Is it you? Are you good enough? Am I more ascended than you? Like all of this hierarchy and elitism and ego competition as it relates to ascension. None of that was in effect in the time of ancient Atlantis when everything ascended. It was the time before death. No one ever died, everyone ascended, and there was none of this sense of like, let me measure myself against you. Like, who's got longer hair? Who's got larger biceps? Who's going to ascend more? Like, none of that was in effect. Each person had their own perfect divinely ordained body, size, shape, and form with beautiful uniquenesses. Everybody has their own unique time pattern. Everybody has their own unique math solution to the language structure or musical structure of your DNA or the song of you. And everybody has their own inevitable pathway to ascension, which would be considered graduation from this level of reality. When you go through the wormhole that is here at singularity, you don't poof out of existence. But what you do is align with a new level and layer of existence. This shape is meant to be a refinery of experience and refinery of your consciousness. Some of that means that you are learning and gaining wisdom, even as a star is learning and gaining wisdom from their emanations, reality project creations, and then the feedback of what it's like to be a reality project creation of the star. If you're like, cosmic complaints department, we ain't happy down here, the sun is like, thank you, here's my cosmic clipboard, duly noted, I'll be getting right on that. Let me emanate some time restructuring so that way things are better for you. The sun is learning. The sun is learning about its creation, the stars, the entire galaxy, all life everywhere. All of this is really learning about its creation. It is why artists make stuff. You externalize the internal and you learn about yourself from externalizing the internal, and then you learn how to do it better. Your life is an art project. And what you're really doing with this journey around the chakra system is to experience wrong notes. Here's wrong notes, bad music. Sounds terrible. That sounds so bad. Very bad music. And then, no, what I was really trying to play, according to the brochure, was something like this. That's the music I really want to play. It's a happy chord. It's a major chord. That sounds so good. That's exactly the life trajectory songs that I want to play. And what you're doing with your refinery here is figuring out what are the series of parameters and choices that you have to make in order to play that happy little ascension song. Getting through the wormhole, not hitting the membrane of death, getting to the source and infinity, continuing as consciousness journey. So like I said, not to put too much pressure on you, but every single choice you make from the moment, because I don't want you to be paralyzed, but like you wake up in the morning and you're like, should I put on my bathrobe? Will I hit the membrane of death? Should I make coffee? Will it make me die? The point is, like, you're going to have to learn by doing. But what you really want to do is activate your highest consciousness, connection, higher faculties, be able to perceive time and read the musical score of the cosmos, and then you won't live in a constant state of anxiety and vacillations of your decisions. You would be like, I want to make the choices that lead me to infinity. I want to make the choices that lead me towards being my truest sense of self and an eternal being, which is the true definition of who I am, according to the brochure. And those are the choices I'm going to make. So if that's your parameters, when you wake up in the morning, you'd be like, does this choice help me to ascend and get to infinity? And if the answer is yes, do it. And if the answer is no, then make a different choice. This is the choose your own adventure novel of your life. If you did those books maybe when you were a preteen or a tween or somewhere in that level of your reading comprehension, because those stories are written and structured in such a way so that you're like, here's an example, like you're walking through the woods. The path diverges to the left and to the right. If you choose the path to the left, turn to page 17. If you choose the path to the right, turn to page 392. And depending upon all of these branching structures, you have different things happen in the story. Same exact book. Dun dun, this is your book. Different permutations of branching structures. And what, of course, you want to do in the book of you is align with the branching structures that bring you home to the destination. The source is also the destination. You want to make these life choices that refocus you into your truest self and into the reality structures that you are meant to inhabit. So some of the process of becoming an ascended master means that you jettison untruthful personality characteristics and behavioral structures. Some of it means that you are aligning with certain events, probabilities, and possibilities in your life. So some of it is about who you are as a person, which is positive because that's what you're really in control of. And some of it is about what's happening around you in your life, which can be a little challenging because you're not always in control of it. So here's two different examples of that. Like who you are as a person. That would be like saying, should I follow my heart and paint this painting, or should I not? These are personality characteristics. Or should I, fall in love with that person and build a life with them, or should I not? Should I, whatever, go someplace else and live in a yurt instead? These are your characteristics based on you. But then there are some things that are based in your circumstance. That could be like if you're in a war and there's bullets whizzing past you, like you will die. You will die. It's not about who you are as a person. It is about the trajectory of small pieces of metal that can go through your body and make you die. And that's really not about whether you're a good person, a bad person, a wise person, whether you've learned your life experiences or anything like that. It's just about the trajectory of small pieces of metal. Or more likely, if you live, especially in an urban place, you're driving on multi-lane highways, getting into car wrecks or something like that. You're not a bad person if you get in a car wreck. It means that you didn't step on the gas or the brake effectively, or you didn't do what you were supposed to do in terms of navigating huge traffic dynamics. You're in the wrong place at the wrong time. So again, to circle back to my somewhat fragmented thought here, we all have people that we love who have died or passed on or gone out of this reality structure that we inhabit. They were not bad people, unless of course you're like friends with Charles Manson or something like that, because that's like a psychopath. That's a different level of reality. But most of the people in my life that I love and treasure are not psychopaths. And some of them have died. Some of them died from cancer, or they died from injuries and accidents. And like a tree fell here on our street. There was this beautiful old tree because there were lots of rainstorms and then a big windstorm. Their roots got destabilized. Then they got blown down by a windstorm. It wasn't a bad tree. It wasn't evil or psychopathic in any way. It deserved life. It simply could not endure its circumstances, like being hit by a bullet in a war. So we all have beautiful consciousnesses who we would consider to be like our co-travelers and experiences through life. And if they die, they're not disposable. They're not something that deserves punishment, which is getting, again, kind of into that twisted Christian stuff. I don't know if that's a band, but that should be a band, the twisted Christian stuff. The sense of like, you did something bad and wrong. Now you're dead. Go suffer. It's like, that's not what's going on here. That sometimes people are completely good and innocent in their personality characteristics, and they end up dying because of where they are in the time currents. Just that, like if you're sailing a ship on the ocean, and if you don't sail those currents effectively, you could have a giant wave crash over your ship and sink it, or you can get stuck in the doldrums, no wind for your sails, and you die, run out of food, there's no seagulls to eat, there's nothing, run out of food and water and die. That can happen just because of the larger ocean currents or larger events in time, which would be good with the analogy of the tree that fell down. Just larger weather events made that tree die. That's it. So please be comforted in the sense that if you had a cat that died, they weren't evil, they weren't bad, they weren't disposable. Because I had a beautiful cat before I had my dog boss, I had a cat boss, and she died. And that was like a big loss, and it wasn't because she was bad or wrong or that her personality structure wasn't good. It's because of larger events. So please be heartened. Please keep that in mind, because here is what is actually happening as a graphic depiction when someone or something dies in your life experience. Let's use the whiteboard because I think that the drawings remain and have a coherence and eternal structure, as opposed to the things that I draw on top of a painting, which tend to evaporate from Zoom. Here is one person's time vortex, life cone experience. And of course, we will draw the central core timeline going upward. Hooray, I made it through the wormhole and I made it to infinity. But they've also got all of these other timelines that converge on the membrane of death. And of course, it's all throughout this area, but I often simplify it. So just, it's like laborious. I'm melting, like it's too hard to draw every single timeline. Don't make me draw every single timeline, please. And then there's this person over here. This is a totally different life vortex. All right? And they also have a path of ascended mastery that begins here, goes upward through the central core timeline and outward through the wormhole, and they all converge together. And then we'll make these timelines a different color. Here's this person's life, and look, that coincides, that coincides, that coincides. Some of these guys have an area of coincidence. In the Venn diagram, here is where your timelines match up. This one is me and one is my cat. Here's where we actually lived together for, 10 years. And then there is a bifurcation of realities. As I focus towards my path of least likelihood and emergence from this reality structure, and my cat focuses towards her path of ascended mastery, our lives no longer interweave or overlap. There is no longer the area of coincidence. Coincidence in math does not mean a happenstance or a funny thing. It is literally where things coincide or converge together as lines. We have diverged. And that is literally happening for every single, I'm drawing them as vertical upright pathways to infinity of all of these different parallel incarnations and life experiences, and there's a countless number of them. These are all these different organisms. As you go through your refinery of consciousness, you refine and focus away from certain travelers on your journey, on your path. Some of your paths don't coincide anymore. And so to your perspective, they have died. And to their perspective, you have died. To use my cat as an example. So my cat, she died a Viking death. She died in battle. She went out one day, at evening time onto our front porch, and like another animal killed her. And that was very sad and very sudden. And from my perspective, she died. On a different timeline, from her perspective, she stayed alive. She went outside, sniffed around, blah, 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 came back in, but I died. I went out for whatever, to buy salad dressing at the grocery store, and never came home. Got smeared across the highway by a Mack truck. So I died from her perspective. She died from my perspective. But what actually happened was we both focused away from the peripheral life experiences that we were on and towards our path of ascended mastery. And now let me give you an even brighter, more hopeful image and diagram to share, because this, no, stop share. Okay, hold on a second. Getting all upset here. This is what I want to share. I don't even know where that other screen came up. This, no, yeah, good. Okay, Zoom, don't do anything weird. This is what actually happens. All of these pathways, and I drew this last week, converge on infinity. So this is infinity over here, right? I'm just going to erase that so you can kind of comprehend what's going on. That is the wormhole. Every single one of these timelines, all of these guys over here, they're not actually standing up like lollipops. They're actually radiating like a dandelion, and they all converge at the center at infinity. So here's all of here's a time vortex like this, and here's one like this, and here's one like this, and it's an incredibly complex, multi-branching shape. I just drew a couple of them, but there are an uncountable number of them. And that means that this place here and this place here are the same place. And so I will meet my cat again at infinity. She will have a different life trajectory to share with me. When we meet, we'll be like, "It's so great to see you. I love you so much. I love you so much." Jump into each other's arms, hugs and snugs. This is great. And she'll say, "One night you went out and never came home." And I'll say, "I know, one night you went out and never came home." And then we share what happened after that, or after those moments? Well, then I went here and your friends adopted me, and then I moved to Arizona, and then I lived with the dog, and then this is what happened. And I tell her, well, I moved to Southern California and I adopted a dog, and then this is what happened. So we catch up with all of the information that we didn't share in the area of coincidence in our lives. So please know this. Like, if you know someone who died of cancer, there is a different timeline that they were on where they didn't die of cancer. They actually got healed. They actually got healed. And, miraculous things happened for them. But what happened was you died. You died. I have a lot of friends that died of cancer, unfortunately. But from my perspective, from their perspective of me, they did not die of cancer. They stayed alive. They found a cure. They went onward in their cellular journey, but I'm the one who died. Maybe it was a Mack truck on the highway, a traffic accident, or a brain aneurysm, or space debris fell on my head from the space station, or, an alligator bit my face in the morning. Whatever it was, I use these, unlikelihoods. Meteorites, beamed in the cranium by a meteorite. Far outreachers, outliers, but nonetheless something that can happen. And they're like, yep, sadly we remember Aurora. She was a good friend until that piece of space debris, cracked her skull open. And I'm being lighthearted, and I can be that way about me and, my own death. Not that I'm making fun of anybody else's grief at death and loss, because it's a very, very real, like, feel it in your guts type of stuff, because I cried a lot when my cat died. But please know that these are both valid reality structures, even though they don't match. So my perspective is a valid reality structure. My cat died. Her perspective is a valid reality structure. She stayed alive and Aurora died. These are two different versions of reality, both of which are accurate and appropriate to the experiencer, viewer, and co-creator, but they don't match. So just know that when you meet again, your beloved pets and family members and trees and microbes that have died, houseplants that have died ad infinity, they have a different story to tell. They have a different perspective and a different reality structure story to tell of what brought them to infinity. And the real answer for that is why? Because they had specific life lessons that they needed to learn. So if I died and my cat stays alive and she misses me, but gets adopted by my friends who live in Arizona, and then she goes to live in Arizona, and she has to live with a dog because they have a dog, then that would be like, wow, she had something to learn from that. That those life experiences were sculpting and honing her as pure consciousness through the events of her life and of her reality experience to be her greatness. That is what you are when you exit through the wormhole. You are the version of you that is your greatness. So if you are ever in doubt, I speak to all of you who are here and who are alive. If you're alive, like, thumbs up. You're doing something right. Keep going. If you ever wonder, like, why does all this stuff happen? Why does crap happen? Why, mommy, daddy, why do good things happen? Bad things happen to good people. But it's not meant to be like a justification for the lack of accuracy in the brochure. But just know that if you wonder about events in your life and in your reality, what is really happening is through the events in your life, you are going from an angle like this to being more and more in alignment with your core persona. So as distressing as it was for my cat to die, I grew, got more wisdom, got more inner spiritual muscles, became stronger and more resilient, and learned from it, and then became more my greatness. And same thing with her. Why were we torn apart through time? She became more of her greatness, or becomes more of her greatness, by being adopted by a different family. That's it. If you wonder about if you have lost a spouse, partner, child, family member, because grief is hard, and you wonder, like, why? Why does this happen? The answer is because truly the experience of loss is honing you towards your greatness. And that can be hard because God is infinitely merciful and is not here to punish you or harm you or make you be like, learn through suffering. No, which is another like Christian thing, like throw it out the window. You're not here to learn through suffering. But we come into this world of mortality. That's different than the world of immortality. And if I rewind and I say, like, what is the world of immortality like? Nobody ever died. You never felt grief. You never felt that, like, punch to the gut of grief of, like, oh, my cat is dead, or whatever, my husband is dead, or my child is dead. Like, it's profound emotional trauma and distress. You never feel that. And you learn certain levels of life lessons, but you never feel those lessons. And sadly and distressingly, this world of mortality, like, that's the girl, like, those are the lessons that you're learning here. Mostly these lessons of grief and separation that happen through mortality events. But that really doesn't justify the non-pristine system, because you're not supposed to die. So I just want that to be really, really clear. The death is not necessary, and it is not didactic, and it's not why you've been crashed down here. To be like, oh, I'm here to experience death and death of my loved ones. It's really turning me into my greatness. Ho hum. No. But this should give some contextualization and heal you from knowing what is the effect of being here in this world of mortality and experiencing mortality and the mortality of your loved ones. You are being refined on a soul level, and largely these levels of characteristic refinement have to do with what is one's response to loss and to grief and to suffering. So the best response is becoming your greatness. When you're like, yeah, I miss that person and I'm going to do something to honor their memory, you know, or whatever, I miss my cat, I will find new love. Cheeky is the love of my life. She is the new love that I found that happened after the departure of my cat. It's about how you respond to these very unfair traumas in your life and resiliency that you create in moving forward from them. And how you, like, that's your characteristic. It's who you choose to be in response to a situation that might even be aberrant or very, very unfair. Who do you choose to be? And I'm encouraging every single one of you to choose to be your heroic self. When you choose to be your greatness and your heroic self, you're like, you know something? A bunch of bad SHIT happened. Yeah, people that I love died and bad things happened. And what am I going to do? You can, like, throw everything out the window and be like, that's it, nihilism, nothing matters, why try? Like, sit in a heap, don't do anything, or rock back and forth slowly. No, but what you can do instead is choose to be heroic and be like, you know something, gonna muddle through. And then what I've done in my life of the things that have been pure crap that I've been through, I have used them in order to be more compassionate and attentive to others on their journey when they have slogged through pure crap. I'm like, you know something? I can relate. I know exactly what it feels like, and I am through it, and I can help you in some way, or inform you on your journey in some way, or give you some loving encouragement in some way. That is the heroic choice. Every single one of you has experienced your own version of pure crap. If it is illness or disease or loss or whatever it is, it's your characteristic of responding to it that turns you from being the unheroic, mortal version of yourself to the immortal, extremely heroic version of yourself that is your greatness as an ascended master. So those purple vertical timelines are you as an ascended master. In terms of pure math, and you know me and how much I love math, I'm like, math, I love you, let's never be apart. When you look at it in terms of pure math, that version of the song of you or your math calculations of your personal time field is the perfect calculation, because all of these other peripheral timelines are not perfect calculations. So now I'm going to draw one of these time spirals from the top down, or looking from the bottom up. So this is not a perfect circle, but a map. Pretend that it's perfect. Just pretend with me. And this is the wormhole vortex that's at the very, very top. And this is also what it's going to look like to you from the first person experiencer. When you're in the time vortex, that's what it looks like. And what you want to do is to align the arrow of your consciousness, like an archer. You want to shoot the arrow of your consciousness at that place. Here, I'm going to even make it look like an arrow with fletching coming off of it. All right? It is called the path of least likelihood because there are literally an uncountable number. Like the odds of winning the lottery. Like look at all these green dots. There's so many. I'm going to just fill up the entire thing with 100% green dots. Green dots, green dots, green dots everywhere. Your chances of, as an archer, hitting that central wormhole with your arrow is like 1 to 10,332 million to the 32nd power, like astronomical odds, all right? Like the odds of winning the lottery. But buy a ticket anyway, blah, blah, blah. I'm just being a little silly here. But yeah, so also that's why those are all the wrong notes, like wrong note, 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 wrong note. All the green dots are wrong notes. And that purple timeline and the arrow hitting that purple dot, hooray! The right note, who I'm truly supposed to be. So you're refining your characteristics and your definition of self to become the person whom you are truly supposed to be. And that is why it is called the path of least likelihood, is the least mathematical likelihood of you to be there. And the characteristics that you attain in aligning with that pathway are non-random. This is not like, I don't know, I've never really watched one, but some of those beauty pageants where they're like, who is the most beautiful, like Miss Universe, Miss America, whatever it is? Is it that girl? Is it that girl? Is it that girl? I'm like, they're all beautiful. Like, how can you even say which one is the most beautiful? Like some kind of a contest of who is the most beautiful. How do we determine what is the most greatness, beautiful version of you? Is it like the one that has like the most perfect face? Is it the swimsuit competition? Is it the talent competition? What is it that makes you win the beauty pageant known as like the Ascended Mastery Beauty Pageant? Is it the interview? It's the interview. No, it's none of those things. It's a very, very real, non-negotiable set of math parameters that are programmed into your DNA. That's why I say I'll link to this really beautiful series about DNA and math and numeracy, numeric patterns, and how it's perfectly expressed in the molecular structure and behavior of your DNA, because it's everything that Flying Rainbow Lasagna is. It's just a much more like science and math-based perspective and presentation on what that is. So yes, it is a non-random, non-arbitrary set of patterns of like, what is the most beautiful version of me? Because your path of least likelihood might have hardships on that path, or diminishments, or anything that you would consider to be like, maybe that's not the most beautiful version of me. So it's not just merely an aesthetic choice. It is a very clear mathematical choice. In navigating the time field, you should be able to see that with your eye crystal. I don't have a crystal? Oh my goodness, get me a crystal immediately. Because I've been working with all of my crystals here. Like I'll just use this amethyst. But if this is your inner eye and the crystalline structure of your pineal gland, you should be able to see, like, I'm connected to the wormhole right now. This is the most perfect version of me and the most perfect version of me in my life. That is incontrovertible or non-negotiable. You're like, yep, that's the most perfect version of me. And let's say I make a choice where it's like, oh, I made the wrong choice and now I'm going over here. You can tell. You can tell like, oh, I'm getting off my path. Better redirect, get back on my path and be the greatest version, the greatest version of who I can be in this particular incarnated reality. So let me read through my notes a little bit. I haven't said everything, but sometimes I just go through without, I miss important stuff. The culminating moment, the final moment, when you go through that wormhole, it is the culminating moment of your whole entire time vortex. And that includes all of the wrong notes. When you get to, hooray, the right note, that is the end of an incredibly long journey that includes all of these other implied trajectories. When you can read time, you don't have to personally experience all of the peripheral wrong notes. You can skip them, but they are there as part of the innate structure and implication of the stuff that could have happened. Like, yep, those are the structures where I died by drowning, and those are the structures where I died from car accident, and those are the structures where you died from cancer, those are the structures where you died from, again, whatever. It's just an elephant stampede. You went to the circus and there was an elephant stampede and you died. Oh no, or anything. You don't actually have to live them. They can exist peripherally. And truly, they exist in the periphery in the same way that this is what I wanted to emphasize from last week's class. What makes these time structures? So I talked all about this being straight energy and then the pathways being circular energy. You have two different types of energy. Energy that goes in a straight line versus, or in contrast with, energy that goes in a circle. Straight line, circle, straight line, circle. And the stuff that's a spiral is going in a graduated circle, and the stuff that's a circle is going in a figure eight. But the stuff that goes in a straight line is the stuff that you want to be aligning with. That is actually the impulse that stretches the super stretchy fabric of time, space, reality from where it is as a flat membrane, where my hand is, stretching impulse. I talk all the time about this being like a super stretchy fabric of reality and then an infinitely heavy bowling ball on top of that fabric. You're the infinitely heavy bowling ball. It's not some other thing. Like somebody else wrote this song or series of events. Don't, kind of backing whistle, like, don't blame me. Somebody else wrote this stuff. You created this time pathway or vector to go up that central core pathway. And just like the way that in fluid dynamics, a boat moves through water and then it leaves a cone-shaped wake behind it, the waveform of that impulse, of that motion of moving forward. Your soul, that impulse is your soul. The purple line is your soul. Your soul is moving forward. You are the infinitely heavy bowling ball. You are causing the stretching, deformation, or warpage of the fabric of space-time. You are causing, unintentionally, all of those peripheries that end in death. Even though you're not saying to yourself, hey, self, let's create one perfect timeline and then an uncountable number of really horrible negative timelines where I'm gonna die horribly. No, of course, you do not do that. It is part of the peripheral structure of reality that, according to the brochure, you are not supposed to have to experience or explore. That's the whole point. If this is, I have to move my thing. If this is the note you want, and there's all of these other notes, you don't actually have to play all those other notes. We're in this world now that is actually not functioning according to the brochure, where people do play all of those other notes, and we have a lot of suffering and a lot of badness associated with that, but you're not supposed to have to play all of those other notes. They are supposed to exist as time potentials that are unexplored. That's what life was like in ancient concurrent Atlantis. You can kind of see with your time crystal. You're like, there's some crap over there. Don't go there. Bad realities over there. Don't go there. Go in this direction. Ascend. And everybody ascended. And nobody ever died. And nobody explored wrong notes, and it was unnecessary. And we all learned and grew in wisdom and grew in experience. This is why I know that suffering is not necessary and is not didactic and is not part of the brochure or pristine nature of the fabric of time-space reality, the way that it was structured for us to actually experience. That it is in many ways an aberration to ever be pointed at an angle and go to the membrane of death and actually experience those experiences. That's not, you're in like the forbidden zone. You're not where you're supposed to be. You are in the forbidden zone. And then you of course learn from it and you eventually get back on your path, but you don't have to explore every single wrong note. That is this world where the guidance system has been diminished, and then you can't see. So again, like, you're having to explore all of these negative possible realities just because you're not sighted, even beyond being literate. So if you wonder, like, who writes this crappy reality structure that one is experiencing, you're writing it, but you actually wrote a perfect story for yourself. You wrote a perfect story for yourself where you would be like, and I had a magic eye up here that allowed me to be able to see the future, sense what was going to happen, and navigate with my steering wheel, which are my chakras, go away from negative reality structures and align with the wormhole. And that is how everybody did it way back or in concurrent Atlantis. That if you are literate and sighted and you can see what's going on and you can see where you're supposed to go, and you have free will. Because again, like if your hands are tied or you're a hostage or something like that, you're like, I want to go over there, but I can't. Like my willpower is being diminished in some way. Then, of course, you would not be able to navigate away from the membrane of death. That's exactly what happened or is happening in concurrent Atlantis. The deployment of negative technology, mind control, and willpower supersession, things that take over your mind and your willpower. So you're like, I can't see SHIT, and also my willpower is being controlled or diminished. That brings people towards the membrane of death. Because if you could, you would avoid that. Definitely. If my cat could see perfectly and her willpower was intact, she would be like, I don't know, if I go outside at this moment, I'm going to get eaten by another animal. Better not go outside right now. Let's wait 5 minutes until it's safe. Or get stuck on the highway, or develop a terrible disease, or any of the things that happen to people that make you die. If you can see, and if you're non-self-destructive, and if you have your willpower, be like, I'm going to avoid those realities. So the real challenge is that any one of us in any level of reality has experienced a diminishment of sight, a diminishment of literacy in terms of knowing what's happening in time, and then a diminishment of willpower. Because it does you literally no good to be able to see something and not do anything about it. What if you're like, well, my hands are playing the piano, and I can see that the next note that I want to play is this high C over here, but like, I just can't control my fingertips. What if you can't control your fingertips and something else has wired your fingertips and it's playing your body for you? That's a bleak circumstance. And that is what was experienced in ancient concurrent Atlantis. And that is what's been fractally microcosmed in this world here with, we'll just call them the millimeter waves. The stuff that is being broadcast into human neurology right now and human biological DNA behavior that has been preventing you from exerting your true willpower in an untrammeled sense. That culminative moment of you being able to get through the wormhole is not the end of your existence. It is you aligning with eternity and with infinity. You do not stop on your journey. You get to infinity. You continue on your journey. You came from infinity. You've traveled through linear time space as an infinite experiencer, and then you continue in infinity. So really, death is an aberration. It's a thing that shouldn't exist. These sudden ends to life experience should not exist at all. What should exist is your infinite journey. And any of these reality structures that diminish your infinite journey or give you bad math or make it so that you have to do bad math if something takes over your mind or millimeter waves control your body structures or whatever, that's not supposed to exist. And you're supposed to literally be able to do your math correctly and never have to experience death. This teaching that I'm giving you is super duper profound, and it actually is the antidote to the teachings that you receive mostly by your cultural and religious programming and training that give you the expectation of death as being inevitable, including the idea of the death or evolution of something as grand and long-lived as a star, because stars can live for billions of years. Be like, if even a star can die, and I'm little old me, like, I'm gonna die, my goldfish died, everybody dies. No. But that is considered to be a level of maturation in the human psychology process. The knowledge of and acceptance of your own impending death is considered maturation according to human present psychology structure. That I do not ascribe to that. I do not want you to simply accept that death is inevitable and that that is going to be the end result of the permutations and choices of your life. And then there's religious structure that says, well, in order to go to heaven and have eternal life, you must die, which I do not agree with. Although I respectfully love and encourage traditionalist Christians on your journey, but I see things very differently. I say, if you want to have eternal life, you should stay alive. Because it's just conflictory. Like, it's like saying, if you want to wear a dress, wear a dress. If you want to wear a dress, you don't take off the dress and then put the dress on. You just wear the dress. So if the dress is the garment of eternal life, you attain eternal life by staying alive. You may now sing that song by the Bee Gees if you want to feel silly. But staying alive is the pathway to infinity. And then there are many erroneous voices, cultural, religious, and other behavioral control mechanisms here in this time place that will tell you, no, the pathway to infinity is to first die and then go to infinity. And again, that is just it's innate logical conflict that I do not ascribe to. So I'm here to give you the complementary, opposing, more accurate teaching of what you're really supposed to do. So now I want to read my notes because and I want to talk to you about what a laser is because this is really good. But wait. So back to my drawing about the arrow of consciousness, okay? But wait, my notes are good. I should read them. Like, you guys should read them. I'm like, I should read them. Okay. So in Ascended Master, the definition is a personality that has been refined to the point of no longer having to die. Boom. That's it. The central core, the body does not, okay, so when you align with that central core reality structure, your body does not cellularly degrade. Instead, it transforms into a form that can occupy a higher dimension. That is literally what the word transform means. Form changes. But as I spoke with you at length last week, and I love that teaching so much, about your body, like the body of 235 and the body of 247 and the body of 315, and how the molecular structure and how many molecules of food and how many molecules of water and all these different vagaries of your cellular structure change throughout your experience, but you're still you. At one point, you're like, I'm me with a hamburger inside of me. At one point, you're like, I'm me with a glass of water inside of me. At one point, you're like, I'm me, and I'm going to eat whatever, chocolate cake. That is still you. You are you. The physical structure of what contains you changes, but your definition of self remains constant or consistent. When you become an Ascended Master, what you are doing is transforming. The formfulness of what you are changes. So you might no longer eat hamburgers or chocolate cake, but you will still ingest energy. The type of body structure that you have might change or be redefined. Your formfulness might be a different form, but you will still be you. And how do you transform? And the mechanics of this have to do with paring away. Wait, let me read this properly. Paring away false beliefs by getting rid of things that are untruthful, distortions, illusions, or falsehoods. And you identify only with the core sense of self, not any of the distortions or untruths. So now we go far away from even just the sense of behavioralism. Like, when I wake up, should I drink coffee or should I drink tea? Getting away from that. We're getting towards the sense of jettisoning belief systems that are based in distortions or untruths, including the belief system that says that everybody dies and everything dies, that death is necessary and death is didactic, including the distortion that says that in order to achieve eternal life or quote unquote go to heaven, you must die. That is distortion or falsehoods or non-truthful life. I will get to your chat. Thank you very much for being here. And that those erroneous belief systems and expectations, that's really the math. That's really you as a math student having to check your homework and jettison any calculation that does not sustain your consciousness eternally. So you go through, you do like a self-assessment, defragment your own hard drive, go like, is this right? 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 You go scan your whole body and you're like, red X, something over here is saying that there's something that does not compute. And then you have to examine it. So that basic programming of the expectation of the inevitability of your death is literally what makes you die. And in order to be an Ascended Master, you jettison that expectation, you reform your belief systems into being a version of yourself that, like I wrote, is the version of yourself that no longer has to die. No longer has to die, no longer has to die, no longer has to die. No longer has to die. So let's just talk a little bit about this, because it's not in my notes, but I just want to speak to this. Some people here in this time and place think of death as like a release, and also kind of just like wad it up, throw it in the bin. You know what I mean? Kind of like if you're an artist, I don't know if you've ever had this. I'm an artist, and sometimes you're drawing or sketching or painting something. You're like, it's pure crap. Wad it up in a big giant ball, like throw it in the bin, start again. That's how some people treat their life. They're like, oh, this is just so messed up. This is so bad. This is unretrievable. This is so ugly and wrong on every level. Just get rid of it, start again, death. And they might think about death and reincarnation within one lifespan, or they might think about reincarnation into a totally different life. Like, oh, well, I really screwed up that life. I hope I get born into a better body next time. Off I go. And so death is not escapism, but some people use it as an escape mechanism for being able to escape from the actions and consequences, the reactions and consequences of their actions. You're the artist of your life. And you're like, if I don't like what I'm experiencing, I should get a pencil and an eraser, or I should get some turpentine and a rag and wipe out what I don't like. Oh, I can't see the chat. Wipe out what I don't like from the view of my painting. Not throw the whole entire painting out the window, because it's a priceless masterpiece. So wait, before I go too further onward on my rant, let me, Pedro, thank you for being here. And Pedro says in the chat, Aurora, how old do you think you need to be to start your classes? Oh, that's a great question. So I would really say that I make these teachings universal and accessible to anybody, even including like some little kindergarteners watch these sharings and teachings with their family. I try to keep my language clean for that reason. And also, if I'm going to talk about something that is really a grown-up topic that might involve like sexuality or reproduction, really like you want parents to be able to broach that topic and begin the education with their young ones. So I would say there's even Tony Rocket. He's got like a little newborn baby. He's like, yep, we watch your shows together all the time. I'm like, oh, and your little baby watches too. He's like, yep. So even a 1-year-old, because they're totally cosmically connected. They are amazing presences. They feel a lot and sense a lot telepathically, even if they're nonverbal. And they also get a lot from imagery and just from sensing the purity of what I send out. I would say in terms of having the cognitive ability to comprehend what I teach about, it might be children of like 7 years old and older, but you're never too young to be able to be a part of it. So I would say, for people that are in a family, I really do try to make this for the entire, all ages. Watch with your children. Anytime that I'm going to talk about a topic that is really incendiary or just not right for the very impressionable young people, I will always say that in the beginning, and I'll always say in the YouTube description like trigger warning, or that this might have something that is not for all ages. But almost everything I do, I try to make for all ages, and that's really in respect to the levels of consciousness. First of all, a lot of people, young people coming in, are super duper advanced. They know a lot, even though they're little people. They're in a little body, but they are very, very worthy participants. And they're here for a reason, and they're here as part of planetary ascension, and they're here on their own ascension path, so they can definitely benefit from learning about this too. But I would say watch with them, so that way you're there to field any questions that they might ask or want to know about, so also that it fits in with whatever you're trying to, teach them about in life. And of course, I would never want to go against you if I'm teaching essentially like an anti-religious assertion, and your family is religious. Like, I would never want to be in conflict with that in terms of the heritage of what you're trying to share with your children. So parents get to teach their children directly about religion and Jesus Christ and sex and stuff like that, but they might benefit from being exposed to alternative viewpoints, as long as there's a family conversation about exactly what this is all about. So make my teachings the beginning of a family conversation where you can talk about all of this stuff. That way I feel like responsible to the parents parenting and me being intellectual contributor, like a teacher, but not indoctrinating children who are very, again, impressionable into exactly what I believe. So Pedro also says, I don't want a baby manifesting a mountain of pacifiers or a kid manifesting a candy rainstorm. Dun, dun, dun! So cute and so funny, Pedro. I really appreciate your thoughtfulness and your humor in my class. Let me just drink a little something. You know, there is a Twilight Zone episode that is similar to what you're talking about, where everybody doesn't have superpowers, but one little boy has superpowers, and he's not very well behaviorally parented at all. And yes, he manifests a lot of things where he's like, I want this, I want that. You know, he's very spoiled, and no one ever says no to him because they can't. Because if you say no to him, he takes away your mouth. You see someone with no mouth, and she's like, She's like, yep, she's the one who said no to him. So yeah, you have to set boundaries with little children and teach them how to use their superpowers for the forces of good and not just for their own personal egotism. So some children definitely need to learn about that. And just as a total aside, I don't remember exactly what the name of that Twilight Zone was, because there's a original Twilight Zone and there's a Twilight Zone from the 1980s, and both of them had that episode. It was something about the cornfield. He's like, and if I don't like people, I wish them away to the cornfield, you know, like, oh my God, like because that's psychopathology. And also most children do not want to cause harm to those around them. Like that's definitely actually not an innate part of human psychology. Violence and self-destructiveness, and so sometimes children might be self-centered where they're like, well, I want what I want. But not every child is like, I want to wish, whatever, that a meat cleaver goes inside of your brain, or that you, have a whatever amputation or something like that. Children are mostly not psychopaths. But you have to socialize children so that they recognize, like, whatever, if you bring out a plate of food and put it down in communal eating, children are going to be like, oh, great, me, I get to eat it all. And you have to teach them, no, you can have some, but not all, because you have to share with others. And if they're like making a lot of noise, you have to be like, hey, I know that you want to run around and play, but you live in a house with neighbors, and you can't just always scream at the top of your lungs because they don't like it, and you have to learn to live in community. So that is literally what parenting and social indoctrination is in its best way, when you help children to transcend the negative aspect of self-centeredness that is just part of being a new person. And you do it in a positive, gentle way to be like, no, you have to share, you have to respect your community. But then also, I don't think that most children are innately violent. And if you know a child who's violent and they're doing something like that, like, you really have to work hard to get them away from sociopathy and psychopathology, so that they really recognize, like, hey, like, you can't be violent, you can't hurt people, no hitting, no harming, you can't be mean or to dogs or cats or butterflies. Like, these are like very important lessons to indoctrinate very young people into. So I don't have children of my own. I don't have my own biological children, but I did a lot of childcare. It was a live-in nanny, did a lot of professional babysitting. So I got to learn what new humans are like, what little tiny children, from infants and a lot of, children like under 10, and then a lot of the tweens. I did a lot of interacting with young people. So I definitely got a chance to be able to learn about human development, and then also how to lovingly influence them with self-control and indoctrinations about what it is to live in community. Because you can't expect someone to come here with that. Some people need help. Some people need extra help to learn how to integrate with community. But I worked with a lot of really wonderful children, a lot of whom you would say are like indigo children or crystalline children. Like, there was a reason always why I was there, teaching them and sharing my ideas with them. And I would share the version of what I could put into things that they can comprehend. And children actually do really understand a lot in terms of what human psychology calls magical thinking, the sense of creating reality with your wishes. So you have to teach children to wish properly. And I teach adults to wish properly too. That is what conscious reality manifestation is. That is what the use of the Merkaba is. That is what I joke about when I'm teaching my Flying Rainbow Lasagna movement group. When I'm like, I know we all want ice cream, but you don't want ice cream like at the expense of the fabric of time, space, and consciousness. You don't want to just have your own pleasure at the expense of destabilizing the structures that sustain all life everywhere. So you kind of learn, like just as you learn as a little child, you can't eat all the food that's on the dinner table yourself, or like whatever, what's the best, if someone puts food out, there's like, the boring vegetables, the mashed potatoes, and then like the really good stuff that you want. Like you can't just eat all of that yourself. Like you have to share some with others so that everybody gets a little bit of everything. That is also when you do manifestation and you do the Merkaba and you do the Flying Rainbow Lasagna, you have to learn those same lessons sometimes in the body of chronological adulthood, where you're like, yep, I want ice cream, but I don't just want to eat all of the cosmic ice cream and then have everybody else go hungry. I don't just want to usurp all of the power structures and then I'm happy and well situated, but then everybody else is crappy and diminished. You want to make sure definitely that you balance out and mitigate all of your desires. I would also say that there's a way to be able to teach. Yeah, Pedro, good. You remember that episode of the Twilight Zone. And Joyce says, next week I will be camping, so we'll be absent. Well, Joyce, I hope that you have an amazing time in nature. Thank you for being such a committed student. Don't worry, the archive will be here when you're done. Please do take time to unplug from the technological world and get away from Wi-Fi and electrical wires and all that stuff and talk to nature and talk to the forest and the mycelium and all of that. That'll be absolutely amazing. I'm very, very, pleased for you to do that. So thank you for that. But back to the question about, these teachings or whatever, the teachings about Flying Rainbow Lasagna are totally universal or cosmic. And a lot of the children that are here right now are so advanced and they are so receptive to this. They might not have large vocabularies, so you might not be able to talk to them about quantum physics or whatever like that, but you can definitely teach them about being a responsible wish maker, being responsive to their community and their ecosystem, and about their innate divinity and how that doesn't take away from the innate divinity of all these other creatures, and also to be responsive to the questions that they have, because children often have questions. I joke about this, like, Mommy, Daddy, why do bad things happen, and why does evil exist, and why did that person get hurt, and why did that person get killed, and all that stuff. Like, children are building a structure of reality that is the whys and hows of how reality structures come together, and it's actually our jobs as an adult to give them a truthful and accurate and empowering view into what reality is structured like and what's actually happening, so that they don't feel like a victim, so that they don't feel like life is totally unfair. That's actually one of the worst things. If you say to a little kid, like I wanted ice cream, but that guy got my ice cream, and then this and that, and you just say, like, well, kid, life isn't fair. That's one of those, like, soul crushing moments where a child's soul just goes like, oh, like they just die when you say that. You can't just say that. Like, also the cigar chomper, hey kid, life isn't fair, get a job. You can't do that. It's not the 1930s. You have to be able to frame and contextualize the unfairnesses of life, or the things that they're going through, or whatever. Maybe there's things like school shootings that they're afraid of that are very, very valid fears. It's not just a boogeyman fear. That's a real valid fear. And to be able to be like, why do sometimes people come to school with guns and shoot all the students? It's like, you're going to have to tell them why and what's going on, and how they should respond to that, and how they can integrate that existence, that knowledge of those events possibly happening, into their own life existence. So these are huge levels of personal responsibility, whether you're a parent or whether you're a trusted adult in the life of a child, influencing them positively, like a babysitter, or I've got little neighbor kids that are 3 and 5 years old, and they're always asking me questions, and I'm always trying to give them the most empowering, accurate answer that I can, so that they don't just like get a sense of like, oh, well, nothing matters, life isn't fair, the grown-ups all told me so, give up, why try now? Like, you can have a huge positive impact on the life trajectory of a young person if you tell them, if you speak to them in the right way. So I would really hope that what I have to share in my class here, if you're a parent, or if you have a young person in your life, yeah, share my stuff with young people that are in your life, but definitely contextualize it and have it be the jumping off point of a conversation so that they can know about what's going on, and definitely do some like guidance for their emotional fortitude of learning about certain things, like the unfairness of the brochure of life that we're supposed to be experiencing, because children definitely have a magical viewpoint, and they're like, this is not according to the brochure, and children say all the time, like, that's not fair. And you can't just be like, yep, that's right, kid, it ain't according to the brochure, get used to it, this is only the beginning. That's terrible and soul crushing, so try not to. But thank you for that question. Let's get back to my notes and talking about relinquishing the expectation and belief structure that is largely culturally imposed about the necessity of death, and that is really what ascended mastery is. Because a lot of people think, again, like you have to die to go to heaven and all these different things, but when you are the arrow of consciousness and you're directly aligned with God, which is what is through that wormhole, God is your persona. So the path of least likelihood is the trajectory that is the end result of an enormous amount of self-cultivation and refinement of your perspective and your perspective, your behaviors, your viewpoints, and so much more. You do not become a flavorless vanilla or flavorless gelatin, nonsense creature, as sometimes people might think of an ascended master as like, la la la, like I have no personality and have no personal feelings, and just like a neutral pablum. That is not what an ascended master is. So, because a lot of people are like get over your ego, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of kill your ego stuff here, and I'm like, no, don't get rid of your ego, just like don't get rid of your chakras, but please hone and refine your ego until you are the leanest, most accurate version of who you can be. And so that means you're allowed to have personal desires. When you hone and refine your ego, you're like, yep, I'm allowed to desire stuff. Like I can want ice cream, but also your desires for ice cream don't supersede everyone else's desires for ice cream and everything else that's going on. That's just one example. You maintain the uniqueness of your presence, the uniqueness of what you're good at, and your strengths and your gifts that you have to share in the world, and also your unique tendencies. Like whatever, if you come from New York and you talk like this, you don't have to get rid of that. You don't have to have just like a neutral Midwestern accent in order to be an ascended master. You can still be you. Or if you're a punk rocker, be like, yep, I'm a punk rocker, and I have a mohawk and I'm an ascended master. You can be that. You can be whatever are the uniquenesses and flavors of who and what you are. But what you have done in the cultivation and refinement of self is get rid of anything that is extraneous. And what really happens is you are living as God. If God incarnated in your body, in this time place, with your challenges, what would God do? How would God behave? How would God respond? Again, I told you a lot of choosing the path of least likelihood and your heroic version and definition of self as your greatness has to do with living as God. That God takes care of God's creation. You are God. And I say that all the time. Spoiler alert. You are God. And you are the sun. And you are the stars. And you are pure light. And you are creating the world in every moment of consciousness and perception. Take care of your creation. What is it? What is the definition of living as God? Is consciously creating and taking care of your creation. How that is exemplified in terms of behavioralism changes from culture to culture and time place to time place. Everybody needs different things in different times, and people accept nourishment in different cultures according to different cultural paradigms. So the way that you comfort someone after a death in one culture is different than in another culture. And how you exemplify yourself as God in terms of helping people, like you have to try to help them in a way that's really helping them. I don't know, I have a good analogy for this, but clearly like the cultural values and moral imperatives of, let's say, sub-Saharan Africa in an economy that's based on camels. It's very, very different than the values and cultural imperatives of someone who lives like in Quebec, Canada, and your economy is different. And if you're like, I'm very sorry that you're mourning the loss of your wife, may I give you a camel in Canada? Like, that is not going to work. That just does not translate. So living as God must come through the cultural filter and context of your time, place. And it's also unique to you, that whether you are a male, female, what your appearance is, what your level of ability is, all of these things reflect upon how you take care of your creation as God making these creations. So also, many, many millions of people have ascended or are in the process of ascending, as it is an experience that technically happens outside of the definition of linear time. And it's countless. It's as many as the numbers of grains of sand on our planet, because I really, really want to get you to comprehend that it is not just for a special elite level of society, as like the Hindu caste system says, like, honey, if you're born as untouchable, like, you're not going to be ascending. But if you're born as a high caste, then you will ascend. I really, really, really want to get away from that paradigm. It is much more complex than that, but also much more encompassing. Inclusive is a good word. It is inclusive. Literally every single life trajectory has at its core the potential for being an ascended master. But if you are looking, like I joked about Charles Manson, a psychopath, if you're looking at the life of a psychopath, you're looking at someone who is far to the periphery. They're tilted over an angle. They're tilted way over at an angle. They are not being their true selves. There's a version of every psychopath that is the path of least likelihood, central core timeline, who they really are meant to be in the world, but not a violent psychopath. They're not meant to be a violent psychopath. They would have to jettison those traits and be like, I chose not to be a violent psychopath, and instead I chose to help people, because God is not a violent psychopath in spite of some of the teachings of the Judeo-Christian Bible. God is not like, I'm feeling violent today, I'm going to smite you. Or, I don't like the culture I created, I'm going to drown you in a flood, or any of those things. That's a huge amount of ego projection from flawed humans onto the divine persona of God. That is not what God is like. God is infinitely loving and merciful and compassionate, sets really good boundaries like a good nanny or a good babysitter, but also offers endless choices, endless opportunities for rectification, endless opportunities to heal and grow and fix your mistakes. That's what, the love and the compassion is. God is, again, not a psychopath, so it hasn't set you up here to be like, here's God the psychopath, like, to make you have lots and lots of trauma and loss and suffering, yes, and then you can finally have ice cream. It's like, no, it's actually not what God is. God is like, nope, I actually want you to come down there and embody and individuate and have lots of ice cream and no suffering and no trauma, because suffering and trauma do not help you to learn, and they're also the things that we jettison as baggage, as non-ascended master, non-essential baggage, because you heal all of that stuff and then you ascend and become your eternal self. So the diminishments and traumas and scars and things like that, you actually don't take all of that stuff with you. And when you go through the portal, and it's like going through a wormhole, it's how experts do star travel, and you got to travel light. You got to leave your baggage behind. Leave your baggage behind. The bad stuff that happened to you. You do not develop your sense of self as, I'm the person that was hurt or victimized or that bad thing that happened to me. You change your definition of self to be defined by the positives and positive characteristics and things that are eternal. So you're like, I'm the person that helped those people in that way. I'm the person that gave and uplifted to those people in that way. I'm the person that baked that amazing cake or whatever, that fed all of those people, that made them feel very satisfied, or gave to the world in this way. That you are defined by your positive activities, not by the negative sufferings that have happened to you. You heal those negative sufferings on the journey of exiting the wormhole. All right, so let me just do a little bit more characteristics of the central self. What are okay, wait, I'll read this because this is so good. What is it that makes you die? when you are distorted in action, beliefs, and experiences. And then when you die, it's like the math teacher that's like, well, I checked out your long division, and here's all the red X's and the stuff that you didn't do right. And now get back in there, kid, and try it again. See if you can do your math homework better and get back to me when you've got a better answer. And that your most godlike aspect of self, every action that you do and every thought that you think, and your body is in such a state of perfect health and vitality that it does not die. It transforms or metamorphoses. So again, a lot of people think like, oh, well, like my body is old, wrinkled, and or bones are creaky, and or maybe you broke your ankle and it never quite healed right. Throw it, toss it out the window, get a new body. And no, that expectation also is part of the sense of not leading towards ascended mastery, because in ascended mastery what happens is you recognize that your body is such a miracle, such a priceless gem, such a treasure, like on the level of a Fabergé egg, and that you can heal and regenerate. So instead of, again, being like, I don't like this room in my house, it's rat infested, get rid of it. You're like, I don't like this room in my house, it's got problems. Get rid of the rats, get rid of the rat turds, fix up the room. Let's go to Home Depot and get some lumber. Let's fix it up. You do that with your body. And here in this time place, there are just not that many examples of people who have transcended and have healed their bodies. But there are a lot of stories you can read about them, about yoga masters that lived to like 180 years old, or were able to revivify themselves or rejuvenate themselves. And it's not just a nonsense thing like, and then one day I just decided to make myself young again. It's a whole process. It's a whole process, like learning to play the piano. Like you don't just do it out of nothing. There's a procedure is what I'm trying to say. But as an ascended master, you can follow that procedure and be like, yep, and then I fix this part of my body, and then I fix this part of my body, because a lot of people think like, oh yeah, you will grow old, and you'll lose your teeth, and your spine will become decrepit, and all these different things. I'm like, no. And also, if you already have gotten to that point of decrepitude, don't jump out the window or throw yourself away. You can regenerate, and that is part of what humans call the dormant aspect within your DNA, but it is stuff that's been hidden from you, where like the soup Nazis, like no soup for you. They're like, no regeneration for you, decrepitude for you, telomeres for you, limited lifespan for you. So, but all that stuff really does exist in your DNA, and that the closer you are to the central core self, the more divinely perfect you are. And each one of us is God. Each one of us is a divine person. It's so big. It's so big that each one of us that is here in life is actually a divine person and is part of God. But you can't include like artificial intelligence, that's not a part of God, negative malevolent impulses that travel on the millimeter waves, that's not a part of God, so please be selective. But humans that are in embodiment, and ocean creatures and trees and butterflies, those are all parts of God. And some people that you might meet on the street, like when I lived in San Diego, my neighborhood was full of really decrepit drug addicts. And this is when I read in my notes, it says some people are so peripherally distorted that their divine self is almost unrecognizable. A lot of these people were disposing of themselves in self-destruction, and they were almost unrecognizable as God. Like there's a central core timeline where some of them are like university professors, or they do something to contribute to the world, or they've helped people in some way, but not this peripheral version. This peripheral version is the one that fell into addiction and spiraled down the time toilet and is pretty much just gonna go through death, the escapism route, and then have to circle back and then be like, get to the part in your life where you first picked up the meth pipe and don't do it, then you will be on the path of ascended mastery. So crucial life choices that people have to align with or move away from. Characteristics of the central self. Let's talk in positives instead of in negatives about what it actually is to be an ascended master. It's the greatest potential in each one of us within your life. The ultimate success, the total inevitability, like an inevitability particle, and you should think of yourself in that way, where you've explored all the other possibilities and you've come to the conclusion that you are God. That's what this life experience is really all about. And if I had a young person in my life that was like, Aurora, like, what is life all about? And why am I here? And why are we all here? And what is going on? I would be like, you're here in order to experience all that you need to experience in order to come to the inevitable conclusion that you are God. And that would be truthful. You let go of all the things that do not serve that basic truth. You keep key aspects of self. Like for me, a key aspect of self is I'm creative. I make creative paintings, I make creative music, I have a creative approach to life. That's an innate characteristic of who and what I am. Who or what would I be without my creativity? Whatever it is, you couldn't call it Aurora. Because you'd be like, yep, that's not even who you are. So again, I'm beyond the definition of my clothing that I wear or something like that. But it's the sense of who I am as a series of characteristics. Negative behavior characteristics are left behind. So that includes things like drug abuse, violence, and poor decisions. And poor decisions can also be things that are poor decisions made in innocence. Like when you choose to trust someone and get into a stranger's car, and then they ended up violently murdering you, dumping your body in the woods. That's bleak. That's dark. I don't usually go there. But you're innocent. You're good. The only flaw in your personality characteristics that would be considered non-divine would be that you didn't know from your innocence that you had to protect yourself from psychopathology. There's nothing wrong with you. You were just ignorant that you didn't know. Bad stuff can happen. Bad stuff exists. That's what a lot of the misadventures on the membrane of death equate to. Innocent ignorance. That you're like, I didn't know that would happen. I didn't know that person was a psychopath. I didn't know that would lead to my death. Or sometimes people eat or ingest certain substances where they're like, I'm eating something delicious, or I think it's good for me. Then later on they find out that stuff caused cancer and made me die. Not me, but this is paraphrasing. So you did it out of innocence. And then what happens is you have to learn. And then on your next cycle around, you're like, don't eat whatever that stuff is. That's like the artificial sweetener that causes cancer, whatever, sweet and low or whatever. Don't eat sweet and low. You're going to die. And you hear that in your intuition, and you're like, I think I'll stay away from the diet soda. Yes, I'll drink water. I'll stay away from the diet soda. And then that ends up being a critical choice that you make in your life. So we definitely try to listen to our intuition, honor our inner directives about what is health-giving and life-giving within a very challenging and fraught life circumstance, because sometimes you don't have choices. What if you don't have a lot of choices about what are the food additives or impurities that are in your life? Can be really, really challenging because you're like, I don't want to eat that stuff because it can be bad for me. I want to eat better stuff, but sometimes we don't have better accessibility. So just know that you can transcend and heal your body even if you ingested things that were toxic or poisonous in your past. Doesn't have to define your present and your future. And that really, those are the real stories that we get from some of these amazing gurus and teachers. I always just mention like Hindu tradition because they have a tradition of passing their information from generation to generation, but some of them intentionally drink a poison and then transmute that poison because what they want to show their disciples is your thought structure and your belief structure in your divinity and your divine connection is stronger than a poison. But don't do that as a beginner. In fact, don't do that. Children that are listening, please don't do that. But these are the value of those who have reached levels of spiritual attainment where they're like, yep, glug, 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 I drank a bunch of poison, and look, I'm still here because I want you to know that your body is a miracle. Your body is a miracle. Don't drink poison like me, but recognize that whatever bad stuff you might have ingested, if you ate Twinkies years ago and you think maybe they're still floating around in there somewhere, you can transcend it. And that is really that's what science calls mind over matter, but that is what I call innate basic cosmic truth. Because you come to these levels of thought structure where you're like, I'm creating my body with my mind, I'm creating my body with my cognitive capacity, I'm creating my body in each moment as like a miniature Big Bang divine co-creative experience, and I can recreate myself in states of perfect divine harmony and health and non-toxicity in each moment. But that's a lot for most people to intellectually attain. Most people are going with the rationalism that says, yep, if you ate Twinkies and hot dogs in the past, they're still somewhere, they're stuck in there somewhere, and that that's it. Like you're going down the toilet. It's Twinkies and hot dogs. but you're not going down the toilet. I will really, really, really affirm to you that the human body has amazing potentials for healing, correction, what you would call detoxifying, removing stuff that shouldn't be there, restructuring stuff, reinventing stuff, aligning with stuff that you didn't even know was possible, and regeneration and rejuvenation. And it's non-arbitrary. It's very orderly. It happens according to stuff that you do. So it's not just like, oh, and then one day I just decided, like, those Twinkies weren't going to bother me anymore. It's like, no, you do a whole thing. You do a whole thing to get rid of those Twinkies. And then you are your new, like, whatever, cleaned up non-Twinkie eating self. And you stay that way. I know the class has gone long. I'm getting very silly. But let me go through more of that. So that's part of the journey of ascension and becoming an ascended master. Distorted personas that were part of the integument of the experience. So those guys that are shambling drug addicts down in San Diego, their distorted personas are like the integument of the experience of their life. They really want to be playing this note, but they're playing these notes down here. But those notes down there are part of the integument of their soul's journey. It's kind of like saying that they had to go through that dark, gross, whatever, residue and be like, okay, I went through the darkest, grossest stuff, but now getting to the better stuff. Not everybody has to experience the darkest, grossest stuff, but some people do. And then there is some benefit from them on a soul level, going through the toilet, going through the sewers, and then emerging, and then becoming purified again. So please hold people in the highest light when you see someone who is really in profound self-destruction, instead of saying like, oh, they're just a hopeless case. In this life, they might, or in this, from your perspective, in this incarnation level, it might be just hopeless for them. They might not be able to come back from their addictions and degradations, but there is a version of them that is simply not accessible to you that does reach spiritual attainment. Consciousness is an incredibly precious gift, and it is not given or disseminated to just be kind of like lost away down the cosmic toilet. Like, no, like if you flushed your wedding ring down the toilet, you'd be like, call the plumber. Like, that's an incredibly valuable, priceless thing. Let's take apart the S curves, you know what I mean? Take apart the S curves and see if we can get that diamond back. You don't just flush consciousness and be like, oh, well, off it goes. There's plenty of consciousness elsewhere. Every single one of those sparks of consciousness is incredibly valuable and precious, and we don't just discard it. But then the recovery process, or getting them into the purified world, can be a very, very long time. It can be very arduous. It can be very fraught. It can take many, 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 many cycles for them to actually get back to that. Each one of us, and then this is also another beautiful aspect of what I have written in the notes. Each one of us has the potential to be an ascended master, literally a Christ as great as Jesus. And Jesus and the word Christ, these are like chocolate and peanut butter. They go together in our language. We tend to even define what it is to be Christ based upon the life and teachings of the person that we know as Jesus or Yeshua, which is why there's a lot of stuff about like, first you have to die, then you get to live forever. You have to have violence done to you. You have to have all these different experiences and suffer a lot, which is it's not something that I agree with. However, the teacher and the man and the presence and the ascended master ego persona is an amazing person and is here as part of this pantheon of ascended mastery to inspire us and guide us on our life, and that you have the potential to be as innately good, as divinely perfect, as oriented in service towards others as Jesus is or was in his or their experience. That, because I want you to know that being a Christ is not the definition of being a martyr, being a Christ is not the definition of being a cosmic doormat, that he was great for his time and place. He's not sub-Saharan Africa, he's Middle East Africa, where literally they did have their economy based on camels. It's like 2,000 years ago, and came out of the Judeo-Christian tradition of the Bible or the Torah. That was a value system that was written 5,000 years ago. So he was talking to people that sold women as chattel, like they sell a camel. different cultural paradigm, different cultural context. He was God living through a body in that time and in that place, and he spoke the truth that people of that time place needed to hear. But you all must be God living through this body in this time place. What if you are a person of color and you live in an urban city and you're part of the hip hop culture? Then you must be yourself. You must be your version of an ascended master self in that cultural paradigm, and your parables might come out as rap music or hip hop music or break dancing. I know that I'm sounding like incredibly lame as I'm saying this, but you understand what I'm talking about. Speak to the people of the time place that you're surrounded by in the language that they can perceive, and bring the lessons and exemplification of eternal life to them in the way that they can receive it. And that is also why you're made as you are. Like if you are made in urban world surrounded by hip hop culture, you're there for a reason. And if you're in sub-Saharan Africa, you're there for a reason. And if you are in Singapore, you're there for a reason. And of course, if you're in California, which is where I am, you're there for a reason. And you speak through the language that the people around you can hear and can recognize. So each one of us has this potential inside, and you have your own particular talents and gifts and flavor. So yes, hip-hop Christ would still be that flavor. When you ascend, you will go through the wormhole and you will still be that person. You don't have to all of a sudden jettison all of those aspects that you define yourself as in order to be a perfect ascended master. You can be your true self. It's part of who you really are. So ascended masters are not flavorless, like gelatin flavor or whatever. They're very flavorful and very unique. And that this is not merely based on your temporal ego or being submerged in time, but that these are universal characteristics that carry through multiple layers of reality, of a manifestation of energy. So I talk a lot about my creativity. I define myself as a dancer, literally, in whatever material medium I'm in. If I'm a light wave, then I'm going to be a dancing light wave. And if I'm a human being, I will be a human being, moving in these gestural forms. And if I was whatever, a lizard, I would slither in very dance-like, beautiful synchronized movements. Whatever, if I was a jellyfish, I would undulate like this all through the ocean doing my amazing jellyfish dance. I would dance no matter what I was. It is a basic definition of self and of who I am. That's what I'm trying to talk about. And also, I'm very focused on serving and helping others. I'm like, I want my dance to inspire and energize others. And I want my artistry to bring others into their own greatness. And I hope that also in these class sharings, that also shows my true innate personality characteristics of yes, I want to remind each one of you of your innate value, your innate worthiness, the inevitability of your success. If I'm an athlete and I'm running with a bunch of other people in a marathon, here's what I'm not. I'm not see you suckers, I'm much faster than you, eat my dust. I'm like this. I'm running with everyone. I'm hey guys, I know it's hard, but you're gonna make it. Let's go. And we all go and we all run together. That's just me. That's just me. I am innately encouraging towards everyone else around me because I really do see others as myself. And I would never be eat my dust, suckers. I would be hey, you can do it. Keep going. No matter what incarnation form I am in. And also, when you align with that central core timeline and you're living your life in greatness, every single act that you do is meditation. You are literally meditating your whole entire life. So you're not just being okay, I'm going to take time to disengage from the regular mundane reality. I'm going to sit on a cushion, possibly wearing flowing robes, going to chant or go inward and meditate, and kind of achieve unity consciousness. Then I'm going to come back out of that, get in my car, and be yelling at people in traffic, get out of my way, you idiot, and all sorts of things like that. No, you don't do that. You meditate your entire life. meditate all the time, which is very, very hard because when I'm in traffic, I'm not yelling at people, but I'm like, I'm so stressed out. There's so much stuff going on. Oh my God, oh my God. Yeah, pardon me for, saying that, but that's literally what life is like, because I live in this place where there's these crazy highways. And I try not to drive on them for that reason, because it's very, very difficult to maintain that meditative presence in such a stimulative and overwhelming environment. But you're aligning with yourself with the proper energies, being inevitability particle and continuing on your journey. And it is a positive, eternal journey of refinement. So that's what I'm going to culminate with, and then I'll open the floor to any questions. That you go through this whole entire refinery process that can involve billions of iterations. You're like, oh, another spin on the hamster wheel. Try it again, try it again, try it again. You finally play the right note. That is not the end. That is just the beginning of the next cycle of refinement. So you get to the level of ascended mastery. You then get to exist there with all of the other greats who are also existing at that level. Consider it like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Like you went from like, okay, I'm trying to learn basics and trying to learn music theory. Then you're like, can I just even write one decent song? And then finally, like, you write great songs, you write great albums, and then you get to be up there in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And you're there with the rest of the greats. You don't stop playing music. You're not like, oh, well, ho-hum, I'm done. You're like, no, now you play with the greats. Now you join with all of those other levels of consciousness whom have also reached those levels of perception and refinement and self-continuity, and you interact with them. And that is literally the place where I come from as Aurora. So I would say that my persona and my personality here as Aurora is the Ascended Master personality. And that it's very, very unusual for me to backbend here and be speaking in this level of reality, but that is what I did through, where's my lasagna? Through my Flying Rainbow Lasagna, very, very, very purposefully, because one of my innate personality characteristics is that it's not okay for me to just be like, eat my dust, suckers. I'm up here, you're down there, so sorry you're struggling. I'm like, oh, like, guys, like, you can do it. And they're like, they're really struggling. Flying Rainbow Lasagna, that will help to be able to get people to do this. Of course, that's, a little bit of a simplification of how it happened, and the multiple contextual imperatives that allowed me to Flying Rainbow Lasagna and be here, not merely wanting to help others, but really there's an opening to total timeline rectification that I'm like, wow, if I do that, everything is going to improve. And of course I'm going to choose to do that because that's my leveling up as an ascended master. But all these things, like, I already know about myself, so I don't have exactly the same path as other people. And also, I still have a lot to learn because the time place that I ascended from is different than this time place. So I didn't live in that place eating solid food. I lived in the place where nobody died, everybody ascended, nobody had to go to the grocery store. Now you're in this place where it's like, Aurora, this is you. You're like, it's not so easy here. We have to eat food. We have to get from the grocery store with the magical pieces of paper. And all this other stuff has to happen. And so I'm like, I get it, guys. I get it. I'm here doing it with you, running the marathon with you, and saying like, hey, you can do it. You can do it. We're all going to do it. We're all going to do it. So that is it. And that is also planetary ascension. The sense that you don't just ascend and be like, see you blades of grass, see you butterflies, eat my dust. I'm up here where it's nice and fun. Everything comes all in the totally refined and divinely perfected version of who and what those organisms are. So there is a perfect version of each blade of grass. That's the ascended master version of the blades of grass. Doesn't have to die. Butterflies, air, dolphins. There's an ascended master version of all of these organisms, and they're all in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and they're ready to play and jam with you as consciousness when you achieve that culmination too, and that is that spoked dandelion shape of everything getting to infinity. They're all at infinity too. So there's so much more that I could talk about. My notes always have more than I can share just in class. So please, the floor is open to questions, comments, and any further clarification that I can make on the things that I've already shared. Pedro says, curious you say that. When I'm driving, I see myself leaving behind the impurities of my body while coalescing a new cleaner body. That's beautiful. I'm so pleased that you can feel that way. Kind of like as you're moving forward in time space, kind of leaving behind the old versions of Pedro that might have stuff or junk, and then only the most pure and relevant version of you arrives at your destination. I like that a lot. I like that. I will try to keep that in mind if I ever have to drive someplace and kind of, embody that, as opposed to just like the stress and difficulties of navigating a lot of traffic. So, yes, just in a lighthearted way, letting you in on like my life experience. It's fine. Like if I just drive to the local store, that's really, really different than like the multi-lane highways of insanity that are in my neighborhood sometimes. I just don't drive on those highways. But yeah, anything that people would like to share or say, now is a perfect moment. Or if you choose not to say it during the recording of class, which will be on YouTube, but if you would prefer to share it after I finish the recording, totally open for that as well. And I'll always, yeah, Pedro says, yep, you got it. Yeah. And I'll always say so many thank you, profound thank you to everybody who's able to be here live at the recording of this class, everybody who catches my class after the fact, if I'm sharing it on YouTube or on Patreon. Thank you so much for aligning with these ideas and being open to what I share and ingesting them and internalizing them and allowing me to positively influence you in your life. Pedro says, love the lasagna. Thank you very much. Love received and love back to you. I have profound love and respect for everybody that is in this class and that watches my videos. I really do see you in your greatness. I really do see you in your achieving of the potential of finishing the marathon. When you finish the marathon, you go across the finish line, you're like, I broke the tape. You know what I mean? Like there's the tape. You go across, break the tape. Ah, I did it. I see every single one of you in that moment of success and freedom and inevitability. And then, as always, that's not the end of the journey. That's just the culmination of that segment of your reality, and then the journey continues to unfold. Lisa says, this is the greatest gift ever. Thank you. You're so welcome, Lisa. Thank you for being here. You're a lovely addition to our class. So thank you so much for enrolling and for taking the time and being here. So pleased to share these concepts, and also pleased to like connect energetically with the people that are here, because I really do encourage like keep going, keep running on the marathon of life, keep going, and giving you tons of support and encouragement, because you need Gatorade. You're like, this marathon is making me thirsty. You'll need Gatorade. You'll need something to keep going. I'm definitely Gatorade in order to help everybody to keep going. You know something? Someone is waking up underneath my chair. It's so funny. She has like a very good inner clock. And as soon as I press the stop record button, I know that she's going to want WALK. So if there's no more questions or comments, it might be time for someone to get, and she even knows how to spell. She's very intelligent. She knows what WALK is. So sometimes I have to use a different word, like perambulation. We will perambulate. And yeah, again, she knows, I think, what that means too. She's like, Aurora's using multisyllable words. Something's going to happen. Yeah, so we're just about to do that. So if there's nothing else, then I will just say thank you for being with me in class right now. Pedro says, try Spanish. I really should. So Chiqui is short for Chiquita, and her first 3 years or so of life were with Spanish speakers, and she probably does speak Spanish in a residual sense. So I think even if I started to speak Spanish, I think she would probably know what I'm talking about. So I might have to try something else that's just really far off the wall. Lisa says, ascended master Chiqui. Chiqui is totally the master teacher. I fully admit that. Chiqui is the master teacher, and I am her disciple. And she teaches me so much. Actually, I mean, I'm being a little bit lighthearted, but animals are totally ascending, especially in conjunction with the planet. And I call them creature teachers because they have so much to share with us and teach to us humans, who are often very stuck in the intellect, very disconnected from the heart, and also very, very much not in like the body form, because animals communicate through a lot of body language. So like, if, of course, like, this, if they snuggle up next to you, then they're like saying a particular thing. And if their hair is up and they're like this and they go away from you, then they mean like, like really just get out of my face. They're communicating very, very clearly, and that humans, there we can learn a lot. Those of us that are submerged in human social dynamics can learn a lot. And but also, Cheeky comes with me on all of my adventures in every place where I go, and everyone is always like, Cheeky and Aurora, and I'm fine with that. Like, she's got like the big name in 36-point type, and I'm like down here in like 12-point type, but I'm fine with that. And some people are like, yeah, I remember your dog's name, but not you. I'm like, that's fine. Cheeky is in charge, and she's the boss. So yes, Cheeky is definitely my ascended teacher, and I try to listen to her because also mostly what she wants to teach me about is that we need to have more fun, because I'm usually very work oriented, and I'll be doing things here on my music or my art or my videos, and she will come and be like, kind of like stick her nose against me and kind of look up at me and be like, we really need to do something fun right now. So that's what we do after we do our intellectual exercises as a human. Then it's time to go and do stuff that's fun, like walking in a park. I just said the magic word, so now we have to go. Walkies in the park, and playing and running and doing stuff that's not too intellectual, and that's just fun and submerged in the experience. So we definitely need to do stuff like that, and possibly snacking might also be involved, which is also what Master Cheeky encourages me to do a lot. So I know lightheartedness helps too on the marathon to be able to keep going. Thank you so much, everyone. I think that's a beautiful note to end on. Thank you.